According to the clock, it's 7 o'clock now. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Now, if you'd please bow your head, I'll pray. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come together here tonight and meet on behalf of the town. We'd like to ask for your guidance and direction in this meeting, and we'd like to ask for your prayers over the decisions we make. For us, in your name we pray. Amen. All right. And number 3, the approval of the May 28th, 2024 Planning Board meetings. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read and review those.
We did.
Took a long time to review those.
Yeah, that was long.
I was actually wondering if we were going to note the fact that it was a record. But
All right.
Mr. Chairman, here no additions or corrections. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, here none, motion carries. All right, on to the regular agenda item. First up is text amendment TA 24-01.
Good evening, Chairman Moss and Planning Board. I hope you all are doing well. And tonight in front of you is text amendment 2401, and this is for land development ordinance amendments to table 3.1.3. Those are the residential high zoning district development standards, as well as table 6.4.3.g, off-street parking requirements. So our LDO Handbook A notes that the text amendment process includes 2 items, for the purpose of that text amendment process includes 2 items. First, it allows for changes to be made to the LDO with an appropriate filing fee, and the process may allow for the town Board of Commissioners or any person owning land or having a financial interest in the land in the town to amend the LDO or to make that request. And Ms. Barbara Todd from American Engineering submitted the application for this text amendment. It is inspired by the Merit Tract rezoning, and I have an image of that if we want to take a quick look. However, staff is presenting the text amendment, since staff likes to keep all of that together and make sure everything's cohesive when we go through the text amendment process. So the residential high zoning district is for Rolesville's higher density residential uses. And those are residential densities between 6 to 12 units per acre, and include single-family detached housing, single-family attached housing, and multifamily housing. So the table in front of us, we'll go through this, is table 3.1.3, those development standards for the residential high zoning district. And the text in blue is proposed. And I do need to note that this text amendment is still under legal review with our town attorney and deputy town attorney. So there will be some tweaks between the planning board and the town board presentation. However, the intent of the information in front of us will remain the same. So the first item to take a look at is the density. With this text amendment package, the development standard for density is adding in for single-family detached housing. The density could be a maximum of 8 units per acre if the product is age restricted. And right now with residential high, the maximum density for single-family detached is 6 units per acre. So again, that's an addition or allowing 8 units per acre for single-family detached age restricted. I think the side yard setbacks, 10-foot aggregate instead of 10-foot separate for single-family detached. An aggregate means a total, so you could have, 3 and 7, 5 and 5, that sort of thing. And the width of the lot is a little different. Right now with residential high, the single-family detached width is 75 feet. And this text amendment proposes to reduce that to 40 feet for an age-restricted product, and with a lot size of 4,000 square feet to go with that. So that would be, 40 feet across and 100 feet deep for that 4,000 square foot lot for an age-restricted product for single-family detached. And then for townhomes or single-family attached, a slight reduction in the lot square footage. 2,000 is for townhomes right now. This text amendment would include 1,900 square foot lots for townhomes. Another item that I think Rolesville's had in place for a while, with townhome communities or multifamily, no more than 15 gross acres in a project may be assigned to townhomes or multifamily. And one development standard with this package is no limitation for an age-restricted development. So that means it could be the entire development could be attached or multifamily. I don't believe the associated rezoning would be, but this removes that restriction, or would remove that restriction. Along with that, going to table 6.4.3.g, the off-street parking requirements. Right now for single-family attached or townhomes, the parking requirement is 2 spaces two per dwelling unit plus a quarter space for guest parking. And this development package would remove the requirement for any guest parking. So just 2 spaces per dwelling unit for an age-restricted development. And I don't know if it'd be helpful. I was trying to think, what are some communities that you could think about, what is this trying to create? I know I've said before, my parents live in Traditions of Del Webb and Wake Forest. That's a 55 and over community. I don't know if you've driven through there. It's not too far. The lots in that development are in the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot range, or the part where my parents are. The homes are, smaller, single level, smaller yards, the tighter setbacks. I think it's a great looking neighborhood. So what questions do you all have about development standards that would reduce the lot size and the setbacks and such to create an age-restricted development?
I think my only concern is just in the past with the smaller lots. I know there has been some feedback from commissioners in the past that the smaller lots weren't as desired in Rolesville. And I'm just wondering, is that appetite for smaller lots changed with the commissioners now, or?
I can give my opinion on that if that'd be helpful, or Commissioner Sneed may want to, Mayor Pro Tem Sneed may want to weigh in. My opinion on that is I think it has shifted because we kicked off our first affordable housing plan end of last year, and I honestly prefer to call it a housing plan. Affordability is relative, and one thing that's really important in a housing plan is talking about housing diversity. If you have all of the same thing, your community is less sustainable than a community that has a variety of housing products. So I think by having that discussion with the housing plan or affordable housing plan, I think we've started to become more comfortable with different lot sizes for certain purposes.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not opposed to the smaller lots myself. I just from past experiences with other neighborhoods, I know that when we had some 50-foot wide lots and smaller ones,
Right.
There was a lot of just weren't in favor of them.
Right, and I will echo Meredith and say that it's a discussion that, of course, we're still ongoing and having, but it does depend on the development, because we do want the diversity, and especially the more affordable and senior housing is something that we're very interested in. So we're discussing that now, and we're going to look at that. But if it helps, I think that's more favorable, not speaking for all the commissioners, just speaking for myself, that is more favorable if that helps to get us the senior housing here that we need. That's not speaking on any project or anything, because all of that has yet to still be looked at. I'm specifically just talking about lot sizes.
I think that does help
Yeah.
me a little bit.
Mine's an add-on, I think, to his question, but because I had the same, I remember the contentious about how many square feet. But could a development be mixed, so you could have a normal zoning, right, where it would have the normal restrictions, but have another section that would be age restricted?
Sure.
And they could do mixed, right?
Absolutely.
So how would that get zoned?
It could be split zoning, or, let's say, or it could all be residential high with a pod of age restricted and a pod of not age restricted. Like the Traditions neighborhood in Wake Forest has all different lot sizes throughout that entire community, and just that northern section of it is age restricted. So it would be something like that.
So it's not a new zone, it's just.
No, it's another,
You would have to do it during the plot, right?
Right,
When they came with it and said, you
It's-
can't do this because it's not age restricted.
not a new zoning district, it's just another column in the residential high development standards table. So it's just adding to that residential high zoning
I
district.
didn't want to, like, we
Yeah.
don't need another zone.
Right, yeah,
So basically, it's just another allowed use within a current zoning district.
yes. Different development with its own set of development standards.
And it would be specific to that section within that development. It couldn't be, wherever they say it's gonna be age restricted, that's the only place these would apply.
Right, and then on our zoning map right now, we don't have any of this in place, so there's nothing by right. So an applicant would have to come forward with a rezoning request, and most of the stuff we do here is conditional zoning. So an applicant would come forward with a conditional rezoning request, and you all, as well as the town board, would have a chance to look at that and work through it.
And then I'm assuming towards the end of the project, there would be restrictive covenants and deed restrictions placed on these sections to ensure that they stay age-restricted communities.
The legal end of it is not my forte, but that sounds about right with, I'll let,
Yes, I mean, that, they should be, if that is the intent, they would be deed restricted. That would be correct. That is something that will need to be considered, and different things have gone on across the state, and so there's some consideration about how to handle that. But yes, they should be deed restricted so that they would remain 55 and over, or whatever it may be.
Is that the general, well, my question was, but maybe you're hitting on it there, but my question is there something specific that legal is still reviewing, or is it just everything in general? You know what I mean, is there something specific that we're looking at that we're kind of waiting on, or is it still just everything in general being looked at with respect to this?
I think the development standards are in place. I think it's how we use the term age restricted and how that piece functions that we have to work through. Am I getting that?
Generally,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
I think what is being presented would generally stay the same. It would just, yes, just some slight tweaks.
Because, I mean, that's my concern too, is that I would be worried, because I'm looking through this, I know it seems fairly straightforward here, but it also feels like it is susceptible to getting abused if there isn't something written somewhere that makes sure that specific properties are labeled this way and always stay that way and can't change.
Right.
So that's the one thing, I mean, if that's something that's gonna result from this, then that's fine, but that's the one thing that worries me. And I'm assuming that the downsizing of everything proportionately is in relation to the maintenance that would normally be done on a house that's trying to be compensated for the population that this is targeted to. So that's why there's a smaller setback, so there's not as big of a yard.
Right.
And the property itself is not as big to maintain.
Yes, I think you're exactly right.
Because I know some of the townhome things, and I don't know if this happens to be with the HOA or if it's something that happens in this kind of write-up, but a lot of those things sometimes get maintained by HOAs to where people don't have to cut their own grass. Is that an HOA-driven thing, or was that something driven at a policy level here?
I believe that would be an HOA-driven thing, not something we would get involved in. Again, I know with my parents, they don't have to mow their yard, but they added landscaping. Their backyard's very cute, and they have to maintain the landscaping that they added. Sorry, it is.
Was this, were these standards, were they modeled after any other nearby municipality?
I believe the applicant modeled them after Wake Forest in some regards. They looked at the Wake Forest Urban Residential District for inspiration.
I guess what I was getting at, so it's been done in some other areas, 'cause I know Wake Forest has several of these age-restricted and age-targeted communities. So we're not completely inventing something brand new here.
Right. Great point.
What's the intention for having the side setbacks aggregated? Because I know we've had issues in the past, and we have some now in Carlton Point, where you have these houses so close to each other that after 5 or 6 years, whatever they planted in between doesn't grow. So if you're talking about being able to have a house 3 feet from each other, and then another gap is gonna be 7 foot, is that what this is?
That would just be on one lot. So on the other lot, you'd still have that 10-foot separation. So I guess it helps you with grading on the individual lots.
Okay, so that's
So
more
it
of a
doesn't mean there would be
position-
it'd just be the 3-foot side setback on one lot, and it would be 7 on the next one. There would still be that
So that's
amount of
more for the
space.
position of the structure on
It gives
the
some
given lot.
flexibility on the lot, yes.
Okay.
So you would still maintain at a minimum 10 feet
Yes.
between structures.
Okay.
Right.
okay. Is that clear with the way the word aggregate is used here, or is that?
That's a great question. I think we would need to check the definition section to make sure we have a definition of that in the LDO. I think that's a really good comment for us to include.
That could easily get misinterpreted
I
as well. 'Cause it
think-
might be, someone might look at it as per lot.
Sure.
Well, I got 3 on this side and 7 on this
Right.
side, and then you got, you know what I mean? That's what I would be worried about, is having 2 3-foot, 3-foots,
Sure.
you know?
And I don't remember if we have a definition for that or not, so I think that's a great comment to include to make sure we include a definition of that if we don't have it.
I should also note that the age restriction can be handled in the covenants within the community as well. So that's another way it could be made sure that it stays.
Okay.
The only other thing I'll say that worries me a little bit is that this is in residential high versus town center. Just because, you know, historically, when you look at the decisions that have been made over the last several years between this board and the Board of Commissioners, residential high is like all over the place. You know, we have developers coming in asking, you know, all the way out by Fowler Road to be residential high, and I just worry that, I don't know, it just feels weird to have something like this so far out, but I don't know, I don't think that's, I'm just talking out loud right now, that's the only weird thing that kind of caught me off a little bit.
I guess most of the stuff that's out though is not really zoned residential high right now. Everything's being asked to be rezoned to something.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, a lot of the stuff, everything east and south of us is all residential medium. The only thing that we have residential low is north, you know, going north up by Pulleytown. And that's what's kind of weird, is that every developer always seems to be asking for the next zoning density up, you know, and so anything that we currently have as residential medium almost feels like it's always gonna be asked to be residential high. And I only say all of that because, I mean, I just really get worried about traffic, you know what I mean? I mean, we start putting residential high with this many more units out by Fowler Road, you know what I mean? I just feel like down Burlington Mills Road or whatever, I just kind of feel like that's a lot more density in areas that I don't think the roads are set up to handle.
Sure, we could certainly, we'll get into that with a rezoning request that will be accompanied with a traffic study. So that traffic study will help us dive into those details with traffic and improvements and.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird though, because like for me, it's like, if we had a number if we had a projected number of how many senior houses we would like to have in Rolesville, then I think you can look at these numbers a little bit more objectively by being able to say, okay, well, we can tolerate this much more density because this is where it's gonna be focused, versus not having an idea of how many houses we want for age restricted, and then, you know what I mean, just having it kind of being able to pop up wherever without any kind of real control over how and where it happens.
Sure.
That's what I get kind of worried about because again, we have more developers coming in asking for residential high and having more dense populations than we're normally zoned for. And it just feels a little bit tight, but again, that all can be, I don't know, it's kind of one of those things you just trust in future meetings and
Sure.
trust in
Right.
revision
Right.
to catch that.
And that
as
would be
opposed to
worked
writing
out
too restrictive.
with any rezoning where someone requests this district. So with what we're looking at tonight, it's more, we're looking for feedback on, are you comfortable with this being an option in the town of Rolesville?
Now, I think my concerns about where it could just, instead of it just being able to pop up anywhere, is we do have that ability that we do get to look at each rezoning request as it comes through, so we have some control over where it really pops up at. On the traffic, Derek mentioned, is that something that you maybe could answer, or maybe the applicant, about what kind of impacts age-restricted community has compared to a regular community? Because I imagine we have a lot more retirees and maybe not as many commuting at peak hours and things.
Right. Typically, age-restricted developments have much less of a traffic impact, more steady trip releases throughout the day versus AM peak and PM peak. People might be leaving throughout the day, or they might be hanging out at home. I know Stantec is getting ready to start the traffic study, or has started the traffic study for a rezoning request for the Merritt Tract. And one thing that came in from, you all know Matt Peach, from Matt Peach today was, to the applicant, please send us the verification that this rezoning, not that we're looking at it tonight, but just companion information, that the Merritt Tract rezoning is age restricted, because that makes a big difference to DOT. They said if we don't have that, we'll have to assume worst case, which is typical development.
Mm-hmm.
Can you pull up the track? You mentioned you could pull up the track that.
Sure.
Merritt track
I
is.
have iMaps open, and here is East Young Street. Here is Rolesville High School. And the Merritt Tract is this rectangular piece here where you see Emily Lane coming through. And the project also includes the rezoning request that you'll see in the future, near future, includes this piece as well. And to help orient you, Rolesville Road, all the way down to Mitchell Mill here. So this is up closer to 401.
And remember, we're not making a decision about this particular project.
Right.
This,
Yeah.
to your point that you brought up earlier, this will impact any age-restricted proposal that comes through. So we're really trying to think big picture here, so just keep that in mind, please.
That's kind of that's a little bit what I worry about. It's like, if it's town center, if it's the town center ordinance, then you have this older population that has access more conveniently to what we have from the town, particularly even in transportation. Right? But when you have it in residential high, it's like it could be anywhere, and they could create their own kind of oasis, their own kind of desert of sitting out here, not having access to services, not having convenient access to a lot of things, because it's not town center oriented.
Sure.
That's the reason why that gets me a little bit concerned about it not being focused and controlled, even though I know we have the ability to do it here,
Mhm.
So that's, I don't know, I don't know how to express that. but
Well, we
that's-
could certainly, as we move forward with this, we could take a look at the town center zoning district and verify that there's room in that district for age-restricted housing, if that
Yeah, I mean, I think that
would meet some of your concerns.
I think that would be helpful, but, yeah, that would be helpful to see that that's still there. And maybe that's why this is out here in residential high versus town, because it's not in town center, but, yeah, I don't know, I just get a little bit worried that this puts the age-restricted, concepts a little bit too out of reach from what that population might be expecting to have access to.
And something else to keep in mind when rezoning cases come forward that include a request for age-restricted housing, you could be bringing that up. I think you need to include commercial and services in your development, or do a split zoning with some commercial, some general commercial to have close-by services.
Yeah, I'm just more in my head's more in the concern about being able to get to town hall, or being able to get to the community center, being able to get to the library, being able to use town services,
Sure.
get to the parks and things like that. All of those things, if it was town center, then it would be easily accessible. But in residential high, where that can be pretty much anywhere, then accessing downtown Rolesville from anywhere on the other side of the bypass is like a video game. So that's what I just worried about. That's the only thing that really kind of put me off, was seeing that it was a residential high, amendment versus anything else about it. So that's,
Okay,
I'm just being a dead horse at this point.
that is fair. We will absolutely include those comments as we move forward.
Anyone else have any other comments?
No, I think, the only thing I'll say is I think we do have a new board, so this board is, I appreciate them working with more affordable housing and just the workability for the age community. So, like I say, we don't have any age restricted communities here, so this would be I think this would be a good start to get it
Isn't
in
one of
the
the
right direction.
cobblestone apartments supposed to be age restricted?
I don't believe so. Maybe that,
I think you're, the project that's across from Cobblestone, why am I drawing a blank on it? Scarborough, thank you. Scarborough, when that first was submitted a few years ago, that came in as age restricted, and it's no longer
Okay.
age restricted. That
There's
might be what
one.
you have on your mind.
Yeah, then there was the one that was over here by the middle school.
Yes, that is not going to happen after all, unfortunately.
And that was more of like a condo type of a
Yes.
situation, wasn't it?
Yes, with some few cottages on site,
Cottages too.
Yeah.
That's what was kind of neat about it.
but more
It's too bad that
condo
that's not
vibe.
common. I like that plan.
That was neat.
All right. Was there anything that the applicant would like to add this evening? Or, nope.
You don't have to.
Okay.
You know, what we're asking for is just,
But if you want to talk, you have to come up here.
no,
Okay.
you don't need me.
All right. If there's no other question, no other discussion, the floor will be open for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we pass TA 24-01, move this on to the Board of Commissioners for further review.
Would you like to include the, make sure we have a definition of the term aggregate to the motion?
Yeah, okay, so yeah, and also include a definition of the term aggregate from staff for this motion.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, on to the next item is the communications. I guess Planning Director's report is first up.
Yes, I know. At your last meeting, you talked about rezoning application that has no name except Pen 17584792444. So what else can I call that? Okay, so that application will be on the July 9th Town Board agenda, so we'll look forward to seeing that move forward. And I don't believe we have any other items to update there. And Mike and Tanner, are you handling the next part? Okay. Thank you. Take my computer.
Still
Oh, great.
I don't think so. I think that was. Goes the inventory report.
Good evening, board. As Mike has informed you on the last couple meetings, I've been kind of taking the head on doing housing inventory research. So for this, it started out as townhomes only, or primarily. It then snowballed into single-family detached and getting a grasp on what we have on the ground currently and what's coming in, as well as apartments and manufactured homes. Those last two categories are a lot smaller, as we do not have too many of them. I believe there's 2 manufactured home subdivisions and 1 current apartment as cobblestone. So that led into, how do I go to the next one? For the single-family detached and the townhomes, these are rough numbers. By rough, I mean I have all of the subdivisions proposed and existing, but I'm still counting the older homes. I've gotten Averett, West Young, East Young to the bypass, North Main, South Main, but I didn't do Jonesville, Burlington Mills, and Rolesville Road. So the numbers will fluctuate on the single-family detached. The townhomes are pretty solid as the numbers. There are 2,004 townhomes or single-family attached dwelling units that have been approved through rezoning. And we only have 310 on the ground right now. The CO, Certificate of Occupancy, means essentially move-in ready. Someone can move in or someone is currently living there. On the other hand, there are currently 3,729 existing single-family detached homes that are built and on the ground out of a total of 7,182 that have been approved through rezoning. So as you can see, there's a significant increase in the number of homes in general. And like I mentioned, these aren't all the housing types we currently have, but this is the majority of our housing stock and housing inventory that we have and we have underway. I added this chart because it shows the totals as well. For the existing total single-family detached and townhomes, which is the majority of our housing, is currently at 4,039. But with the ones that are under development, that adds over 5,000 more. So leading to 9,186. But like I said, that number is rough, so that could go up to 9,300, 9,400 maybe, depending on how many are included in this. Also, the majority of this are subdivisions. So the subdivisions are typically in town limits. There's a few that are off-end that are in county or maybe in ETJ that I did not include in this. So this is primarily town limits. I've separated the different ones for the existing homes, the older homes, because those have more variability of being within town limits or within ETJ or within the county. So that's a further breakdown on that, but I'm still working on that one as well. I also added this. The blue represents our existing, on the left, the single-family detached housing stock, and on the right, the townhomes. The green is the ones that are approved through rezoning. So as you can see, the housing stock for single-family detached almost doubles, and for townhomes, it multiplies by almost 6 around, maybe 6 point something. And this is essentially what I have So far, I'm still working on, showed you all the Excel. I've added onto that and expanded, added totals, like you said, and just really expanded on corridors, where these are. We're still in the process of mapping and kind of getting a grasp on where everything is, where the developments are occurring, and where the homes are. Do you all have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you were putting this together, did you happen to notice the latest year that all of these would be built? What's the
Latest, like-
furthest out year?
Oldest?
The further, like, in the future. Like, what's on the books right now? What's the furthest date?
So in other words.
Am I making
In
sense?
other words, the under-development tower, the bar right there,
Oh,
at what year will that be
Yeah.
understood.
complete?
Thank
So-
you, Derek.
So under development includes, the latest rezoning that the board
Yes.
approved 2 months ago,
Yeah,
through what are all but CO'd. Homes being built, roofs put on
Right.
right now. So it's a huge amount of volume and a huge amount of time frame difference between those two.
right.
We cannot guess what that will be because we cannot guarantee that all of those will be built.
Right.
There's still a lot of variability. Some of those projects may poof and go away, never come on.
That is true.
So
So,
That is fine.
but on average, the developments, when they come and they tell us, this will be built out in 4 years. So hypothetically
yeah,
speaking.
yeah.
So the number that we have right now, there's no rough estimate to say, we'll be at this number in the next 12 years, 10 years, 6 years.
I'll bring up an example only as one that I think we could probably speak to. The Preserve at Jones Dairy South off Jones Dairy Road.
Yes.
It got its zoning entitlements in 2018, early 19, and they're almost ready to record the final phase of that and go to the last, and that's 200 plus lots, I think. So
Okay.
there's a roughly 6-year plus, because they'll still be
Okay.
closing on homes in 2026, I'm pretty sure.
I got your point.
So that's one example
Okay.
that we can look at right now. We know when it started. It's somewhat modern era in 2018. So there's a 6-year gap for 250 to 300 homes.
Okay.
So if you were to take that and, a rezoning for a larger project that the board just approved recently, if it's 6 years from now, that's 2030.
Yeah.
So a decade is probably a safe, very loose number to say that what you have on any given moment within a decade is fair, but obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously subject to any number of factors.
Yeah.
I would say more than fair, these projects should be able to work through their process, but if there's any significant blip in the
Oh, yeah.
market or the rates, et cetera,
Yeah.
could change that, but certainly a decade. So again, our example was about 6 years for 300 lots. If you just want to transpose that into some of these other projects, we've
And
had
I
some.
think the value that you're looking for there is being able to understand, like, future tax dollar and all that kind of business. So any of those outstanding scenarios is probably gonna only affect 10% of that chart anyway.
The absorption of this all.
Hey, Tanner, may I see your numbers again, please?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I was to say, I think, okay, 3,400 under development, okay.
Correct.
5,100 to develop if you close homes and single.
I got you, yeah, 50, so. You still have about 4,000 to build on after that,
Not
right?
counting the apartments and cobblestone.
Correct.
Correct. That is not factored in.
And you mentioned there earlier that this is a mix of within the town limits and some ETJ and some county properties, correct?
The existing line would include some ETJ and some county.
Okay.
I
Do you-
actually left
Oh,
most
they're-
of
they're
those
not
off.
looped in?
I
Okay,
created a
okay.
different spreadsheet
Okay.
that breaks down town limits, ETJ, and county. I only included the town limits in
Yeah.
this.
These numbers here.
Yes.
So roughly 4,000 dwelling units in town limits exist today, and we know that basically all of that under development is in town limits.
Yeah.
So you put the two together, we're looking at north of 9,000 dwelling units just of detached and townhomes.
Yeah.
Being built.
Okay.
Absorbed probably by the next decade, within
Okay.
the next decade, 2020.
Those are
2034.
technically net new, like you said, 2018, right? My house is not included in that because it was built 30 years ago.
Yeah.
How accessible is the data for the units that have been permitted and are physically under construction for building permits? Not so much rezoning or construction plan, but actual building permits.
You want to go in a little more into the spreadsheet and how you've broken it down by those steps?
Yeah, so on the spreadsheet, we have pretty good access. Michelle kind of heads the whole permitting aspect, but we have pretty good aspect or grasp on actual which ones, when the permits were issued, and I updated this June 17th. So as of then, some of the developments that are on the under development category, say it's 150 lots, 70 of them might have been permitted, issued their COs. And so I added that to the existing. So that's why I kind of added that issued CO part, because as Mike and I talked before, especially for mapping purposes, it's hard to like demonstrate, oh, this is 80% complete.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of put it together, put it by category, have everywhere from, this is a breakdown, but from approved through rezoning, preliminary plat, construction drawings, final plat, down to this many COs have been issued, this many building permits have been issued.
Yeah, and I was just thinking your chart there. I mean, I really like where it's going. And if it just seems like if the underdevelopment were split into two categories as far as permitted and essentially approved lots, that might help, as April was asking, what is actually being built on what has been approved.
And Tanner's got that information. And as a project moves through its life cycle from rezoning to preliminary subdivision to construction drawings to infrastructure construction and then final plat recording, and then they go to the building permit phase and they start getting their COs. We're moving those projects across the chart, if you will. So it's always going to be a moving number as they all get closer to COs. And then they move from the underdevelopment to the existing category, right? So it's a moving target, and now the Tanner's created the framework for tracking that, and he's got all the older projects kind of inserted at their current state as of June 2024. Now we get to start moving them as those projects and get these new rezonings, put them into the queue, and et cetera. And so everything will move. If you vision the table from left to right, will all move to the right eventually, getting into that CO column. And every rezoning dwelling unit that the board approves ends up as a CO. And that's a new family or resident there.
Yeah, I was just thinking under development, you mentioned Jones Dairy, because I know there's a ton of permits going on out there between single family and townhomes.
That's the hotbed of permitting right now.
And so, yeah, I imagine there's probably a couple hundred permits pulled between the three Jones Dairies now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this type of information is what planning uses in our strategic plan / budgeting for every year for tax income. Because we prognosticate how many lots will come online and be tax paying in certain years. And so we build that out into that framework as well, so that we can have a guesstimate as to what the tax base will be in the years outgoing. So that's, again, a moving exercise we do usually here in the fall. We'll go into the next budget season. So we do that also based on all this information from like final plats that got recorded, how many lots are recorded, and what do we see in the development community? How fast are these lots being uptaken? So we can track when the plat got recorded, and then we're getting COs. If that took 6 months, then we can, again, plug those numbers into that spreadsheet to figure out when do we think those properties are going to come on the tax rolls.
That's a pretty valuable document. Good work, Tanner. Team. That is, it answers a lot of questions, and it's has a lot of helpful information to help a lot of departments.
And I would say with Tanner being on staff now, this was one of those, I wish we had the time things.
Yeah.
And Tanner's expertise with spreadsheets and all that has just allowed him to tackle this and run with this. So it's really
I'm
great
excited to
information
see it. Very good. Good job.
Thanks.
One other just small comment on the existing section. I think it would be kind of interesting to see how many subdivisions all those numbers are divided into. And I know you mentioned you have that somewhere, so that would be, I think you have it.
Yeah, I have it. Same with the like building permits and COs issued and the stages of development. It's just kind of giving the basis, and then, because if I put it all up here, we would have to stand in front of the TV to read it, because there's so many, and it's hard to kind of
Well, I
demonstrate.
just mean, like, parenthetically mentioned,
Yeah.
like, you know, and the 310 existing townhomes, they're in two, so, you know.
Understood.
subdivisions, You know, something like that, just
Yeah.
because it's helpful to know how spread out those kinds of products are.
Sure. Yeah, I'll include that.
Is this something that you can add the commercial to coming forward, or just give us an idea? Because I know right now we're still, what, 92.8, something like that, or 90.10? So that would be an idea to get the commercial view of what's possibly coming or what's been approved, just something to think about.
Yeah. It might take tax experts greater than us to make that guesstimation, because,
Right.
you know, a tenth of an acre commercial could bring as much tax income as 10 lots. You know, so it's not, but that's a good point, as to track that, because we can do these guesstimates on the residential as they're building our tax base, but if we got one restaurant and that becomes valued at $3 million and it was a zero value lot, that's a huge bump in that, and that could change those percentages of the 92 and the 8. You know, that could, one good development could move that needle a percentage or more.
Walbrook would probably be the
That's
first,
gonna move
right?
it
That'd be the
multiple
first one to move the
feeling.
needle, I think.
Once that property all gets valued out, in a couple of years from now, yeah, that'll move the needle a lot.
But were you just talking about just the number of commercial units, or were you actually talking about tax dollars?
Just the units for, like what we're doing here, yeah, just, not necessarily the dollar figures, but
I
just,
think he was asking more about how you have existing and underdeveloped development, if you could just have a line for commercial. And then how many commercial rentable units there are, or
You mean-
owned units there
You mean
But they-
residential, commercial, like apartments?
I'm thinking where you have single-family developments and you have townhomes, maybe commercial, what, you know, and I just not, and this is not on the record, but I believe Cobblestone is 7 restaurants or 7 businesses, not necessarily, so just something, there's 7 commercial
Okay.
going there. Walbrook has, you know, 15 or whatever it is, 10 or 8,
Would they be able
just to get an
Would we be
idea.
able to see that, the Cobblestone, because it would just be one commercial entity from a residential standpoint, you wouldn't know
Yeah.
how many commercials are gonna be in there.
That's why I'm thinking, I thought you were asking like how many individual business, just like there's an individual house that you can count, you can count like the shopping plaza, like this shopping plaza has 17 units, you know, doesn't matter how
Yeah.
many are rented, but just how many commercial, that's what I thought you were.
Right, and that, yeah, and that's probably a whole, I was just thinking, how many commercial businesses are we bringing in? Are we bringing in 5 in the next 2 months? Are we bringing in 20 in the next 2 months?
Okay.
But to try to go down to each, I think that would be a whole different spreadsheet and a whole nother monster of its own to.
Looking
to
for
do
our
that.
economic development director in the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah,
Yeah, and again, commercials, you know, usually calculated in square footage.
Sure.
And then there's a value on that, and office can be different than restaurant spaces. Start as the value, but no, that's a good, right, because population drives businesses, right?
Sure.
It creates the market. So that would be, yeah, is it the dog chasing the tail or vice versa? So that's a good equation to look at. And I think that's what the economic development plan will be looking at, of when do you get all those rooftops to then draw more
Something else.
residential, and you tip from, you know,
I just
being all the
think that
residential
number would
first.
be nice to pull, like if Mike, he's still here.
He's not here.
But if he, you know, if he could supply just a general number for you that says, here are how many, you know, business spaces we have.
Yeah.
It would be good to see that juxtaposed to this, for the sake of that 90-10 number that you were talking about. I think it would be pretty interesting to see.
And
Especially as we consider projects too, right? Because I mean, you know, we're constantly aware of that number moving, then we'll have a good indication as to how much we want to push a developer to bring more commercial, you know, versus residential.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's good work.
Sounds good.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Any other planning business? Nope. All right. Thanks for the report.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, on to the town attorney's report.
I do not currently have an update for you on the bylaws, but we'll be moving forward, and we'll get that to you soon.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other business from board members? All right,
Make a motion to adjourn?
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Wait.
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.